afternoon, people, and thank you so much for joining us on the Brighton Jazz School podcast. This is number 18. We've had a really exciting week this week. I can't tell you how exciting it's been. We've had the great pleasure of having Cathy Segal Garcia, a wonderful jazz singer from LA, visiting the UK. She's been here for a couple of weeks, and I think she's here for one more week. I got to play with Cathy last year. She just turned up at a jam session at the Brunswick and sat in for a couple of songs, and we were all blown away. The control, the communication, the professionalism, the chops, everything. Just such a great, wonderful musician. Yeah, so she was over here, and I managed to get her to come and do a masterclass at the jazz school. All of those who attended, I think you'll agree, it was absolutely superb and such a wonderful chance for us to be in the presence of such a great jazz singer. So I managed to get her to do an interview, and we also are going to feature her brand new album called Bohemian, which is a piano and vocal duet album, and it kind of reminds me of those Nancy King Chick Corea albums. It's with a fantastic pianist, Korean pianist called Yoo Song Chow. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. The material is fantastic. You're going to love it. But more on that later on because, as I said, we're going to feature that album. Yeah, we're going to be putting the masterclass on the website as well. This is for premium content, so there is, you do need to subscribe. You do need to have a membership in order to see these masterclasses, but we're building up quite a collection now. Jeffrey Keyser one is on there, of course. Cathy's one is on there. We have a great one on practice tips by Paul Richards, guitarist. One by Heather Cairncross and Nicola Cairncross, marketing and how to create an album. All sorts of things, really interesting things, but it is premium material, so you do have to have an account with us. But if you want to see that stuff, head over to brightonjazzschool.com and sign up. Really exciting episode coming up, so without further ado, let's get on with it. So thank you for joining us. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink and enjoy the rest of the show. Album of the Week is sponsored by Personal Financial Designs, financial advisors based in Worthing. Check out the podcast page on our website for a link to get more information.
Back on the road I go through states of repose where stress will fall away. Just living every day's own song. I wake up, step out, look round, and I go, whoa, 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 whoa. Once on my way, I just acknowledge the day, and life goes on its own. The flow of every day's own song will move it, groove it. I will lose the song I sang before today. And as the day moves on, it takes an air of color as I paint the canvas free. Tone and rhythmatic, they stir together as they flow into changes, and they change into a feeling as they move me along into the day's own true song, a joyful melody where I can live the day's own song. I'll take up my heart and move on to the song.
go. What a fantastic way to start Album of the Week. Welcome to Album of the Week, by the way. And you were just listening to Cathy Segal Garcia on her composition Every Day's Own Song, and that's from her brand new CD entitled Bohemian. We're looking at this wonderful CD. I wanted to start with that song because it's one of the only kind of what I would call straight ahead songs, I guess. You know, this sort of swinging, standard-like song, you know, and that was one of Cathy's own compositions. She's a wonderful, wonderful writer. But this whole album is very, very eclectic. We have music by Pat Metheny, Bob Moses, Sting, Shelby Flint, as well as quite a few compositions by Cathy herself. So it's a wonderful mix of different things, and like I said, it's with this amazing Korean pianist, Yoo Sung Chao, and he's fantastic, you know. And the one thing that that really comes through with all of Cathy's CDs and her general philosophy in life really is this sense of the power of communication and the power of space. We talked about this at length in the interview, so don't go away, listen to that. But in everything that she does, she's very elegant, but you can almost see her sometimes taking a step back, taking the time to think, and then moving forward, you know. And that's how the music comes across. It sort of breathes, it has this life, and whoever she works with, she seems to really, well, just as an example, we played a song together the other day at the workshop, and it just took on its own life. We did the standard My One and Only Love, and it took its own course, you know. It went the way that it was going to go at that precise moment. And Cathy's really great at exploring the nooks and crannies of each song. She's not afraid of stepping out the box. She will never just sing a standard straight and, you know, expect you to do it in this sort of same old cliche way. She takes every opportunity to explore the song to its fullest, and that's what jazz singing is all about. You know, that's what, well, not just jazz singing, but that's what the music is about. You know, the exploration of these songs, whether they're compositions or standards. She has what I think is a really natural and deep philosophy on music, and that's the one thing that comes through all of these CDs. Cathy very kindly gave me all of her CDs, 7 of them to date, ranging from trios with Peter Erskine and Mark Johnson, piano duos with the great Philip Strange, and this brand new album, like I said, with this other pianist. They all have the same thing. They all have this element of being able to relax, being able to be confident and comfortable with the songs and let whatever happens. You know, just the freedom and the communication between the musicians. That's it's a joy to listen to, you know, and there's not a lot of singers out there that will do that. You know, Cathy, we spoke about everything from what she likes the piano player to do to, you know, to the actual recording. And she said, well, that she doesn't like to be out front in the mix. She sees herself as an equal, you know, among the musicians and the instrumentalists, I should say, which is indicative of the way she approaches the music. And I have to say, these recordings are all recorded beautifully. You know, she is obviously the singer. She's the one presenting the music, and she's very much the leader, don't get me wrong. She's completely in charge. But like Miles Davis, you know, she has this ability to get the best out of her musicians without overpowering them and without giving them too much direction, like verbally or, you know, musically. It's all done in the moment, which is the spirit of jazz. Okay, so I want to play you the second track of this album, and the music is by Pat Metheny, and it's called Her Family. Well, in fact, the original Pat Metheny song was called In Her Family, and I believe that it was from an album called Still Life. I think it's the last track in that album. I remember hearing that actually not so long ago. It's an absolutely beautiful ballad. They sort of do it in the same format. There's a long piano introduction, obviously played by Lyle Mays in the original, but they sort of do it in the same format. But the lyrics are by Cathy, and it's beautiful. You know, it's transformed the piece into a almost a different piece altogether. But the sentiment of the song is still there, and Cathy's obviously put her own spin on it with these wonderful lyrics. So enjoy this one. This is called Her Family, and it's the second track on the album Bohemian.
In her family, I could see all the love they gave each other, plainly giving, plainly living, always there with an open heart, and they welcomed me into her family. In her family there were boys, and we often played together, making games up, days and dreams of pirates' gold and a forest green. In our days together, joy lived in our hearts. All the time I ever knew them, they were close together. Never had I seen a family be that way. Love came through the strangest doorways, sorry eyes and tear-stained faces, realizing worth was in their hearts. In her family, it was said, one for all, and all was spirit. How I wish that I were there to see their smiles and to feel their love in my heart. I still can feel her family there.
Absolutely stunning, and the way they communicate together and breathe together is remarkable. I'm going to play you another song that really highlights that sort of communication between the pianist and the vocals, and this is very much coming from the Chick Corea / Bobby McFerrin kind of bag. And this is a Bob Moses tune entitled Embraceable Jew, which is a fantastic song. But yeah, so listen out for the Chick Corea influence, especially in the pianist, but also the concept of how Chick and Bobby kind of deal with the piano voice duo format. So this is Embraceable Jew.
Oh, baby.
Wasn't that stunning? Absolutely gorgeous. The track called Her Family, which is the second track on the album Bohemian by Cathy Segal Garcia. We're going to end Album of the Week this week by featuring the title track, Bohemian, track 1. And I want you to listen out for the playfulness between these two wonderful artists. And again, it might conjure up some of the images of... I don't want to keep comparing it to the Chick Corea, Bobby McFerrin album, but there are definitely similarities. And I think the thing that makes that album and this album quite similar is the interplay. It's not really the material, but the interplay between the musicians is wonderful. In general, this album is just really, really nice. I think it's available on Spotify, but hey, why not buy it? And you get the wonderful CD cover with it, and it's full of really interesting pictures and stories and things like that. So it's really well worth having. I don't know about you, but I like having CDs. Incidentally, if you are like me and you do like having CDs, stay tuned, because we have got a selection of prizes to give away based on listening to the podcast and answering some quite simple questions on the website. That's not quite set up yet, but it is coming to you very, very soon in the next sort of few weeks. So stay tuned to that, and we have a stack of CDs and books and things to give away. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, enjoy this. This is the title track of this fantastic album, Bohemian, by Cathy Segal Garcia.
Thought I'd live my life out till I was 80 as a bohemian. Never thought I'd ask for anyone's help again. Not a man. Oh, I was strong. I would get along as a bohemian. Suddenly I was found deep in myself and lost as a kid again. Saw the things I saw all of a sudden in a new way within. Oh, I'd been brave, taught to behave as a bohemian. I was smart to a T. I could live much better than they lived. Hip was hip, cool was cool. I could live alone. Take the lead, don't you need? Act like nothing ever could bore you. Play it cool, that's the rule. You'll survive alone, alone. Now I know that I'm here, feeling alive and being in love again. Wondering if I knew that I was lost and now I was found again. Oh, I'd been blind, forced to unwind as a bohemian. Da-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-da-da-ba-ba. Ba-da-da, 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 ba-ba. Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-doo, ba-da-da-da-boo. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-da-da.
So Cathy, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show. It's a pleasure for us to be here. You're all the way from Los Angeles.
Yeah,
California.
I am. Yep. It's a long way to come
Yeah.
just to do your podcast.
We're flattered just to have you on the show. So what have you been doing here? You've been doing a bunch of gigs locally in Brighton?
Yeah.
Around us?
Yeah, this time I've stayed pretty close to Brighton, and I'll have been here 3 weeks in total. Did a few gigs, a few workshops, like yours,
Yeah.
and did several private students. It's been really fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And for those who missed the workshop today, we ran, Cathy ran a fantastic workshop at the Jazz School, talking about some really deep things. You missed it, but you maybe you'll be able to get clips of that on the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you and find out like how you got involved in music from the onset, and how did you discover that you could sing?
Yeah. Well, I was brought up in a musical family, and I guess not everybody who is brought up in a musical family does go into it, but it just resonated with me. And my dad was a sax player.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom used to sing, and I had twin sisters who were a little older than me, and one played piano.
Yeah.
So that made it really easy. And I just really loved, part of it was I loved the people involved and the lifestyle. My dad used to take me on rehearsals, and I just dug how it felt. It felt really good, comfortable, easy. The music, was good. So I was really drawn to it. That was the beginning anyway.
Yeah. And was your father involved with jazz specifically, or?
Yeah. But he was a little more straight, kind of, if you want to call Stan Kenton straight, but he was into that big band scene pretty much. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So really you grew up in a household that had that music around.
Yeah.
That was part of your growing up.
Yeah. And then when I was young, I learned guitar and flute.
Okay.
And in fact, I went to Berklee College of Music with flute.
Yeah.
Because at that time they didn't have vocal.
Really?
But I was singing the whole time, But so then when I got to Berklee, that period of time was really wonderful period of time for music, especially in Boston. That's where I'm from. And it had blues real heavy, and then it had the Motown thing was happening, and so was Woodstock was happening, and And then there was like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Chick Corea was really doing his new thing. You know, ECM label was actually kind of starting around that time. So there was a real mix of stuff, and of course, I was into stuff like Miles Davis and that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of really mixed music going on.
Sounds great. So, and you know, from having heard you sing and some of your CDs, you really carry that across, the mix of not just one genre, but a whole mixture of things going on and being influenced by different things.
Yeah.
And that's great.
I like that, and especially sometimes I'll get students where they will say that they have a teacher who's very strict, as you know, regarding what style is jazz and stuff. But I kind of think I'm philosophical. So I think that the artist's job is to reflect what's going on in society. And that's why I think a mixture of stuff is fine. You know, and you can call it what you will. You can call straight ahead, or modern, whatever. But I think doing everything and mixing it up is great, because you know, it's just what's happening in life, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you feel that like labeling music can, in a sense, have a negative impact on it?
Yeah, sometimes I do. You know, it's funny because I always have these workshops happening, you know, and I have this one particular workshop with a guy named Tim Sweeney, who's kind of a guru music business guy. And it's funny because he talks about not locking yourself into one thing, you know. He just says, just say you're an artist, you know. I know that coming up in LA especially, like one piano player I can think of, man, he just totally did not want you to call him a jazz player, because he wanted to get into studio work. And he did end up being a really heavy studio guy, and now wants to play jazz. I just think sometimes it's limiting, but I think it's the person too. It's how are you going to use that information? You know,
how you present it.
Yeah.
And who are some of your, like, from a singing point of view, not necessarily jazz, but you know, that as well. Who influences you as a vocalist?
Such a huge question, isn't it? Well, I mean, all those people I mentioned before, you know, they influenced me heavily. And I actually think Miles Davis actually influenced the way I sing too, a lot. I just, you know, I think I said that in college I listened to 7 Steps to Heaven like every single morning. That was the first thing I would put on, you know. And Aretha Franklin, Chaka Khan, well, people also like Sting, and anybody. I kind of think that when I really like someone harmonically and tone-wise and authentically, you know, like when they're really authentic, it affects me. Sometimes I do get into one style of music and I listen to it over and over and over again for a while, and I find that always soaks through either in my performance or my writing as well, you know. So I like authenticity, you know, and if whatever style it is, it's okay.
Here's a question. Do you feel that a lot of musicians coming up now lack that authenticity, or maybe not the authenticity, but they lack they don't seem to be able to stick at one thing enough to master it? You know, they're always wanting to move on and be modern and be, you know, at the cutting edge without having done all the homework before.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think actually that might be possibly a reflection of the marketing. You know, because you know, the marketing commercialism wants to promote younger people, and I actually think that you need to have a little bit of time under your belt to actually develop your own voice and to really be committed to it, you know. And there are people who kind of cross over and do different things, and that's cool too. I think it's really a question of how committed are you, You know what I mean? Commitment and dedication and integrity. I think those things, are not, put high up in our value system, unfortunately. And when you do come across it, it reflects, especially in an artist.
Yeah, I guess like the X Factor kind of, you wouldn't have a competition with young jazz singers doing the X Factor or something, because people that I think listen to jazz for different reasons. I mean, it's not necessarily about being technical and being difficult music. I mean, some of the jazz that I love is simple melody or blues or grooving, and people have this idea that jazz is complex and not necessarily accessible. I don't know. We get a bad rap, don't we?
I know, we really do. I know. Singers have it a little easier because we're singing the melody, and so people can kind of glom onto that. But it's funny. I came across this song. Actually, a piano player, a friend of mine who I've recorded with, Phyllis Strange, he turned me on to this song by Duke Ellington, or actually by Billy Strayhorn, called Star-Crossed Lovers, which I forced Andy McIntosh into playing while I've been here, which he actually enjoyed. But I was looking for it on YouTube, and I found several versions, and I can't remember this guy's last name, Jan, he's a piano player. It was really beautiful. It was really simple. It's just one of those Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn things that, just by itself is really just beautiful, and it's very simple, but I could probably take that to the desert island thing, with me.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think, well, like we were talking before about marketing, I feel, and I think you do too, I feel like it's my responsibility to let people know that this music is so crucial in every way. Its subtlety, its harmonic sense, its simplicity. It's just so it affects one in such a great and deep way.
How did you ever? You must come across people who say to you that they don't like jazz. That they don't understand it and don't get it. How do you respond to that? Because for me, it's so illogical that someone could say that, because jazz is the backbone for so many different styles and styles that are very popular. How do you? Yeah. What's your response to that?
Well, honestly, it depends on the person who's saying it, obviously, and I'm sure you experience this too. If the person is open to hearing what I have to say, then I'll suggest certain listening things that they can do, and also that they can relate to. How teaching is kind of, when you kind of undercut what you would say to somebody else, you try and find the common ground. So I try and find the common ground. A lot of times it's singers, most people know who Ella Fitzgerald is, and I can come in on that kind of a level, and then sometimes they go, well, I don't like that beep scatting or whatever she does, and actually, another interesting thing is, like, Andy and I were listening to Frank Sinatra. We had a TV show on, like on YouTube, an old TV show, Timex, whatever. It was really old. And he was singing. And he really was a jazz singer. I mean, his phrasing was gorgeous and authentic. There was nothing put on by it. It was really musical. And he sang in his particular way. He had Ella Fitzgerald on the show too, and she, of course, sang in a jazzier, quote-unquote way. But still, I think people don't understand that jazz, what really jazz is, right? Which you as a teacher know. It's, it can be challenging to explain to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you say when somebody actually says, I don't like jazz?
I sort of avoid it and ask them, well, do you like Motown? Or do you like blues? Or do you like rock and roll? And if they say yes, then I try and, what is it about that music? And mostly they say, well, it's the rhythm, it makes you want to dance, And I think historically, there's a thing of, you can't dance to bebop. That may well be true. I've never tried it, but to say you can't dance to jazz, I mean, I don't know of a more rhythmically, what's the word?
Interesting, or
yeah, just that infectious rhythm.
Yeah,
you can't sit still when you hear that swing.
Yeah,
or Latin or whatever.
Yeah.
So I try and make them answer their own, give
exactly.
their own reason why
they
shouldn't like jazz, and then by the end of it, normally they say, well, I guess I do like jazz.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's the labelling or the pictures of, because in the UK, I mean, certainly if you say jazz to young people, they might have images of the Dixieland revival that was here. Mm-hmm. That their grandparents went to the pub and they would go on a Sunday and listen to Dixieland jazz in a beer garden, and they don't necessarily understand that jazz is not just about that. There's these other types of jazz and genres.
Actually, I think you've hit on really what it is across the planet too. I think that may be why people don't come out in huge amounts to come see jazz. As I told you, in LA, there's this club, the Blue Whale, which is filled with all age people, but especially young people, and not only playing but listening. I mean, it's packed. Some nights really packed to the brim, and the concept of this isn't your mama's jazz, or it's not the old style jazz necessarily. It's fresh and exciting, and it kind of goes in and out of funk and beautiful stuff. It really is so fulfilling, really. So I think that's you've touched on it for everywhere, really. I think people just have to get out of labeling. Mislabeled.
Because most of the jazz I listen to, the jazz greats of now, they're reinventing the wheel. They're playing standards, but with more contemporary grooves, perhaps, like drum and bass, or completely. There's so many layers of where this music is going at the moment, and I think it's interesting you talking about that club. We have a thing in Europe that's kind of going this sort of chamber jazz or Scandinavian kind of take on things. Are you aware of that in the States,
like what's happening now with that aspect? I don't know. Is it ECM like, or
kind of? ECM.
Yeah.
I had an interesting conversation with Joey Calderazza about this, and because a lot of those musicians don't necessarily have the blues elements in their playing, but they have the classical tradition,
right?
And the differences between. What's your take on? Because for me, I come from a very, I suppose, traditional view that jazz is essentially an American music, and it comes from a deep tradition that is rooted in Africa, not just Africa, but American music, music from South America, the Caribbean, European music. It's a melting pot of everything. But how do you feel about music that doesn't necessarily have one of those really important elements, like the blues?
I know what you're saying.
You know what
exactly. I mean? Yeah, I do. Well, first of all, when ECM came out, I think they started out with Weather Report and I want to say Pat Metheny, and Oregon. Do you know that group?
Yeah.
Ralph Towner. And I remember being really struck by it. It was not so much Weather Report, but the groups like Oregon and Pat Metheny and all those guys. We thought of it as classical and jazz meeting together. And I know exactly what you're saying. I remember somebody telling me that Charlie Hayden didn't swing, and I was like, Yes, he does. You know, I mean, maybe he's not so much out of the element of blues, but he definitely swings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's just I like it. First, let me say that I think it's great music, and I have definitely a part of it in my soul. That aspect of it without the blues, but also. I agree with you. I think the bluesy part comes through Africa, from Africa through America. And it can't be denied, and I've heard especially certain areas of European countries try and deny that aspect of it, which just to me it's kind of stupid. It's like, why even bother even going there?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. But I think that the elements are all good to be used, and I know a friend of mine, this singer named Judy Niemak, she teaches in Berlin and also Spain. She said in Berlin what's happening is like her students are actually not doing standards anymore. They're writing their own music.
Right.
And writing their own standards too. And I mean, I think we are just a conglomeration and a collection of what we've listened to and what we've known and what's filtered in through us, and I think it's all good.
Yeah.
That's
great. Okay. My mind's just.
Yeah.
Cut this. It's okay.
Okay.
Andy, I'll do one of these with you at some point.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, don't have
you
to do
should.
it.
He has a lot to say.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, that'd be great.
He has a huge career too. His career is amazing.
Sorry? Yeah. No, that's great. Okay, here's another question for you. How would you define the jazz singer?
Oh, boy.
I'm
Okay.
putting you through the mill today.
I know. The jazz singer.
The jazz singer.
Yeah, but no, that's a really good question.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'll leave you to alone.
Okay, cool. All right.
You can feel comfortable.
Okay.
Just want a beer.
I'm going to finish mine.
I'll do that again. Oh, actually, we can just
Cut
carry
it.
on. I can just cut
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so defining the jazz singer, and that really is actually a good question, especially for a jazz vocal teacher like myself. Yeah. Well, I think that any jazz person, but I'll try and zero in on a jazz singer. My mind is always going in different directions. But I think that a singer has to realize a few different things. It's really about rhythm, and it's about how the notes you're singing relate to the chords that are being played. And so the relationship, like I was saying in the workshop, the relationship between the singer and the musicians is crucially important, and it absolutely must be part of the mix, because it has to be, because we're relating to each other, and we're basically improvising in the way of, I don't mean scatting, but we're improvising where, So, and of course, the jazz singer has to, or is challenged to be different all the time. Some of the heavyweight singers, like Ella, got into repetitive licks, or especially the older they got, although I have to say Carmen McRae, the older she got, the better she got. She was really amazing. So rhythmically, of course, we want to have a loose phrasing. I'm kind of going slow in my speech right now because there's so much to say about that, and I'm trying to think of it in a nutshell. But just for example, phrasing right on the downbeat, right as the song is written, is not what jazz is it? And I always tell my students, it's like, well, they had to write down the song somehow, So they wrote them down, but they never intended us to sing them like that. They wanted them to change. Harmonically speaking, I think it's the responsibility of a jazz singer to really get some educated ears. Even if they don't know that it's a C minor 7 flat 9, they still have to know that there is a sound that they can relate to. And also, they must get familiar with singing notes that are unusual.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to listen to Cannonball Adderley or somebody like that and appreciate what they're doing, and it's another thing to be able to sing those notes.
Yeah.
So there are ways to do that, and actually kind of simple ways. A lot of times, like when students come and they want to scat, I'll just sit down and play the chords of the songs out of time, and I'll have them sing. First, I'll have them sing a note, and sing another note, and sing another note, and then I'll have them sing scales through it, no matter what the scale is. I'll just say, you know, that kind of thing, and pretty soon I'm moving through the song, and they're singing scales through it, and then I say, "Welcome to the world of scat." You just scatted, you know, and they're
great.
always like, "Oh, I didn't know I did that." So I think jazz encompasses rhythm and harmonies and tone, but everything kind of encompasses that too, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's a specific way of doing things, a philosophy, I guess.
Yeah.
A mentality. I think I read somewhere Sarah Vaughan never considered herself a jazz singer. She said she was a blues singer. And similarly with Billie Holiday. And I think just because they don't scat doesn't necessarily mean, like you were saying with Frank Sinatra, he didn't scat, but he was definitely a jazz singer, you know, great interpreter of the song.
I actually grew up listening to Judy Garland too.
Okay, yeah.
She wasn't really a jazz singer, although she was always unique, you know, and she had a sense of timing and harmonic sense, you know. I also listened to Rosemary Clooney, who also really, she didn't stretch out very much. She wasn't like an Anita O'Day or anybody, but her phrasing was fantastic.
When did you first hear Betty Carter, and what was your...
You know, not till very late.
Yeah.
Because of what my father, you know, he kind of brought certain records into the house, and that's what I listened to. So I didn't hear Betty Carter till late. And by the time I was listening to her, she was already doing her real stretchy stuff. I remember going to see her for the first time, and I was just like, wow. I was so blown away. And Benny Green was playing piano. And he must have been super young.
Yeah.
And she sang a song, a standard song, and it was like so not even there. And I just was kind of blown out, I remember. That particular gig, her intonation was very weird. And so I was a little affected by that, because it was really, she was like a quarter tone off through the whole thing.
Wow.
So she must have been just bad hearing or something, you know, for whatever reason, maybe the monitor. But after that, like, I have a few records that I really enjoy a lot, you know, and I mean, wow. Her sense of timing, where she is, control, like Anita O'Day, right? You know, on those fast things that Anita does. You have to be holding your own in some universe, you know, to really to ride the wave from beginning to end. You know.
Yeah. Of all the jazz singers that are around at the moment, who's on your radar?
I have to say, the people I'm admiring the most are what I refer to as the underground, the royalty, the underground royalty, which includes your Norma Winston, Nancy King, Sheila Jordan, Jay Clayton, and Andy Bay.
Okay, yeah.
You know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like a national treasure, I think. I mean, he really is an incredible jazz singer and great piano player too, by the way. There's other singers who I've heard in various moments. I actually literally have a whole 2-page list of singers that I give to my students. People more close to my age who are doing it, like Kate McGarry and Allison Wedding. These are some singers who live in New York. Gretchen Parlato, Luciana Souza. I don't always love every single thing that these singers do, but there's so many great things that I do love about them. But you also cannot get away from loving the standard singers.
Yeah.
The old singers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like movie stars. They were movie stars for a reason.
Yeah, right.
They were great.
And what's your view on Kurt Elling? Have you heard much of his?
Let's see. Well, Kurt Elling is one of those singers, kind of like Tierney Sutton. I think of them kind of in the same area of the genre. They're really great technicians. They're pretty amazing musicians and artists. I recently saw Kurt Elling, and I was really truly impressed with him. He's just an amazing singer. Can't really say anything negative about his whole ears and all that stuff. Sometimes I feel like I would like a little bit more emotional simplicity, I think, from both of them. And and that's kind of how I feel. I really admire them, and especially like you asked about Kurt Elling. I think he's awesome. He really is. I like him as he's aging. I like him even better.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a real selfish question here.
Okay.
What do you like a piano player to do when you? Do you do
Great
any
question.
piano duo, voice and duo gigs?
Yes.
For me, it's my favorite format.
Oh, me too. 4 of my CDs are duos.
Right.
Yeah, I love duo format. Yeah. It's a great question, actually. Well, for me personally, I like a little bit more adventurous harmony. And even though I'll work with a classic type of player, which one of my CDs is with this guy Ross Tompkins, who is a very famous accompanist in America, especially on the Tonight Show, the old Tonight Show, yeah. And but if I usually have somebody playing with me now, I really enjoy somebody who's not going to plunk out the time and the exact chords for me. Rather, and I don't actually like walking bass line.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I don't mind if you go into it occasionally, but I don't want to hear that all the way
too
through.
Obvious.
And it's too heavy.
Do you know that album with Nancy King and Fred Hirsch?
Yeah.
I love that.
Isn't that wonderful?
They do those standards, and
it's beautiful.
for me, that's just they're breathing together.
Totally
like
great.
One person.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. I don't want the piano player to, if I'm singing a tension note, I don't want the piano player to fix it.
Yeah.
Really don't, because, and I understand why piano players do and where they're coming from. I think I was telling Terry, there's a really wonderful piano player, teacher, Ron Newman in Michigan. Really wonderful. And I remember he was playing for us, and it was the first time he and I had played together. He's truly a wonderful player. And he adjusted for me. But I wasn't.
Yeah.
And he did it so seamlessly that I actually adjusted to him, adjusting to me.
Right.
And then afterwards we had a good laugh about it because he's so used to playing for students.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, make a long story short. And then I can, there's Gary Fukushima, who's a great piano player in LA. When he and I play together, I really have to be on my toes because he knows that I like this kind of free. So he will not lay down one a lot. So I really have to know where I am. And it's really fun. I mean, we get into some really cool stuff. So, in recording, like on my duos, I like to actually have even mixing. I don't like to be out front. I don't know where that came from exactly. But in duos, especially, it's such a shared experience, isn't it? So I like that. Good time, of course, is great. I like ballads to be ballads, But I don't mind moving into some fun stuff, and especially as duos, of course, you can change keys and feels or time. But I like to actually, if we're starting in a ballad, I'm not afraid to continue playing in a ballad form,
So there we are, folks. It's coming towards that time where I have to wrap things up and say my goodbyes and say my thank yous. But let's start with the thank yous. Thank you so much for listening, and we do hope you come back and listen each week. We have new guests every week or every 2 weeks, depending on the length of the interview. I think you'll agree the interview with Cathy is absolutely fantastic and so interesting, and we've actually got part 2 coming next week, so stay tuned. She's a wonderful spokesperson for the music, and she has very interesting insight into philosophy and all sorts of wonderful things, so don't miss it next week. I wanted to ask you guys a question. I haven't done a historical album for quite some time, and I'm wondering whether that is something you would like me to do, as well as doing an album from our artist. It's going to have a fairly large impact on the length of the podcast if I do that. Or maybe I can split the podcast up, make it a bit shorter in one area and put this in. I think it's pretty important, but I just wanted to know what you think. Do you think it was going to be too long if I do that? Featuring an album from our artist and then also featuring a historical album that we can take apart and have a slightly more musical music sort of theory, not theory, but a more technical look at it. That was my intention anyway, and I know in the past sort of 3 or 4 weeks I haven't done that, so I just wanted to know what you think, if it's a valid thing to do. Perhaps you could write to me. It's brightonjazzschool@gmail.com, and visit the Brighton Jazz School website. It's www.brightonjazzschool.com/podcast. And we've got the summer school coming up, so please get your tickets for that. You can do that on the website. You can pay for it on the website via PayPal, all very secure. And we have another Brighton Jazz School concert coming up very soon, which I'll more details on that later on. Thank you so much to Cathy for doing the interview and giving me all the CDs. I've got a lot of listening to do, and I absolutely can't wait to get stuck into these. I've listened to 2 of them back to back, and they're wonderful, and just having played with Cathy just very briefly for a couple of tunes here and there. She's an absolute consummate musician, improvising in the truest sense, and it's an absolute joy to work with you. And we hope to see you back here in the UK very soon. If you're free on Friday, hopefully this will get out before then. Cathy's playing at the Verdict. I'm going to put a shout out on Facebook as well. You must go down and check her out. She's playing with the great Andy McIntosh at the Verdict this Friday. What date is that? That is going to be the 18th. So check that out. And there we go. So that's all that is to be said. Special thanks to Mike Guest for putting it together. And we hope to see some of you down at the Blue Note in Hove. It's below the Greenhouse Effect, where my students, the Brighton Jazz School students, have a regular gig now. So you can go and check them out. You can if you're thinking about taking part in the Learn to Play course, come down. All my students are representatives of the Brighton Jazz School. They'll give you the lowdown, the inside knowledge about what we get up to at the Brighton Jazz School. So by all means, go and hang out and talk to them. I'm there sometimes. I try and make it when I can. So yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about that as well. No problem at all. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with this track from this wonderful CD entitled Song of the Heart, and it's Cathy Segal Garcia with the amazing trio that is Philip Strange on piano, the great Mark Johnson on bass, and Peter Erskine on drums. We're going to check out a Chick Corea composition entitled Bud Powell. So here it is. Please tune in next week to catch the rest of Cathy's interview. We'll see you then. This is your host, Wayne McConnell, signing off.
I dream of a true day free from suffering and sorrow. So take a tip and listen to thunder up there on a cloud just like a Buddha, and let yourself sing with your heart. Now don't let me tear you apart. There's always someone there to give you special information. Talking about the man, but I will. take a train from Copenhagen so far away. And though I never heard from him again, remembering summer spring when music played. And baby, so let's make it a new day. Don't live with a blue day. I dream of a true day free from suffering and sorrow. So take a tip and listen to what out there on a cloud just like a Buddha, and let yourself sing with your heart. And don't let pain tear you apart. There's always someone there to give